I love that. Thinking.
You gotta go and make him sorry.
So much respect.
There's something fascinating about the way Jacob Elordi exists in pop culture. He reads books in public, talks about feminism, avoids social media, dresses in oversized tailoring like he just walked out of a 90s art house film. He has this growing collection of designer bags that he casually carries around Soho, iced matcha in one hand, listening to podcasts through wired headphones like it's 2014. And the internet has a name for this now. They call it the performative male. And somehow, Jacob Elordi became the icon of it.
Oh, Lordy. Who do you think you are?
What do you mean? I'm Jacob Elordi getting popped drinking a tiny espresso shot with a Bottega Andiamo bag casually flung over his shoulder in Soho. Oh.
So today, we're going to talk about how he became the face of this phenomenon, whether it's genuinely cringy or actually smart, and how this whole aesthetic shift has impacted his career. Before we talk about Jacob Elordi, we need to define the term. What exactly is a performative male? In 2025 internet language, sometimes called the matcha male, it refers to men who adopt a carefully curated, sensitive, progressive aesthetic that appeals to modern female audiences. It's closely related to the soft boy archetype, emotionally aware, intellectual, artistic, politically conscious.
What's up?
Hey, what's up? You look gorgeous. Can you hold my matcha?
Sure.
I'm gonna get a shot of you on my dispo if that's okay.
Sure.
Stunning. You look gorgeous. Thank you for having me.
But here's the nuance. It doesn't necessarily mean fake. A performative male isn't just pretending to be something he's not. It's more subtle than that. It's when masculinity stops being just a personality trait and becomes an aesthetic, a presentation. It's a man who doesn't just exist. He embodies a version of masculinity that fits the cultural moment. In the 2000s, the performative male looked like an aggressive, hyper-muscular alpha. In the 2010s, he was the self-made entrepreneur with a Lamborghini and a podcast. But in the 2020s, the archetype shifted completely. Now he is emotionally literate. He reads books in public. He has a very niche sense of fashion. He talks about therapy, about art, about complicated emotions. He's slightly detached, mysterious, deep. Performative masculinity today is no longer about demonstrating power. It's about demonstrating depth. It's the I read Dostoevsky, but also look good in Prada archetype. And Jacob Elordi fits this cultural shift almost perfectly. Here's the performative male starter pack. Wired headphones. I'm not into AirPods. I'm low-tech on purpose. Iced matcha. I'm wellness coded. Designer tote bag. I'm stylish and not afraid to blur masculine and feminine lines.
Too many tote bags.
There's a reason his arm candy often has this gorgeous intricate weave. He's a Bottega Veneta ambassador, and he's turned those feminine handbags into markers of masculine taste with a strategy of nonchalance.
A book, preferably something vaguely intellectual. I'm deep. I reflect. I underline passages. And if it's a novel written by a woman, or better yet, something by a feminist author, even better. Each item communicates softness, taste, intentionality. Okay, so here's the thing. Jacob might actually love reading and prefer wired headphones. He might truly be into art house films and just enjoy carrying books around in public. That could all be real. But the idea that this intellectual image wasn't also used to shape his brand, that's almost impossible. In celebrity culture, authenticity and performance are inseparable. The public version of him is still a construction, and that construction aligns almost perfectly with what modern audiences want a man to be. Emotionally aware, not aggressively alpha, having niche interest. Because in Hollywood, nothing is random, especially when we're talking about a career pivot after early, very commercial fame. After Kissing Booth and Euphoria, where Jacob played these alpha, toxic, hyper-desirable male characters, his image was very clear. He was the crush, the tall, intimidating, bad boy archetype. And there's a pattern here. We saw it with Robert Pattinson after Twilight. We saw it with Leonardo DiCaprio after Titanic. And honestly, we're watching Timothée Chalamet navigate something similar right now. At some point, a young actor who's known as just a pretty boy gets tired of it. He wants heavier role and respect. He wants to be taken seriously and distance from the teen heartthrob label. And Jacob did exactly that. He moved into darker, more complex projects. He started speaking about film like it's sacred art. That's not accidental. That's smart. Because once you get an Oscar nomination for Frankenstein, you're not just a former Netflix crush anymore, you're A-list. And what's interesting is that this intellectual rebrand isn't only happening through his film choices. It's happening in real life too. He doesn't present himself as the typical alpha gym bro with surface-level interests. He presents himself as the opposite. He talks about books in interviews.
You're not on set, you're often caught with a book in hand.
Isn't that a shame? You can't even read in peace, you know? It's like reading becomes a gimmick. And everyone's like, I see you reading.
Well, why aren't they reading?
Because they're on their phones.
He's often photographed holding books. Whether that's intentional or just coincidence, it still sends a message. He doesn't use social media, which is very rare for actors his age.
I have no relationship with social media. My dream was to be an actor. My dream was to play in the movies.
His style feels slightly European, niche, softer, sometimes even incorporating feminine-coded elements like tote bags. He often talks about feminism and about how respectfully he treats women, and even the fact that he named Brad Pitt as his celebrity crush. Instead of giving the typical Megan Fox in Transformers answer like many guys would, also fits into that image. It creates this contrast. Like, I might look like the typical bad boy on the outside, but I'm actually deeper than that.
I think that all of that suffering and pain and trauma is already in our system. Like, I have a theory that I've already lived the grief of losing my mother, even though she's still alive.
His romantic life deserves its own conversation. There's this recurring narrative online that Jacob seems drawn to a very specific type. What the internet loves to call nepo babies. Beautiful, wealthy, socially powerful daughters of already famous or extremely well-connected parents. Now, obviously, we can't reduce anyone to that label. But it's interesting that, aside from his early relationship with Joey King, his most serious public relationships have been with Kaya Gerber and Olivia Jade. Both come from families with money, status, cultural capital. And here's why that's interesting. When you're building an A-list identity, who you date becomes part of the architecture of your image. Dating within elite circles reinforces that you belong there. It signals alignment with a certain social class. And that's not necessarily cynical. It's just how celebrity ecosystems work. Hollywood isn't just about talent, it's about networks. And being consistently linked to women who are already embedded in powerful families keeps you inside that orbit. Again, this doesn't mean he's calculating every relationship. But in celebrity culture, romance is never just romance.
Oh, love that!
And talking about performative romance, it's hard not to mention the now slightly infamous Wuthering Heights promo tour with Margot Robbie. What started as a pretty standard press run for a classic book adaptation slowly turned into something a bit theatrical. Somewhere along the way, it started feeling like a cringy flirtation arc designed to mirror the romance on screen. Margot casually mentioning codependency while talking about Jacob. Jacob sending her roses on Valentine's Day. A lot of people online felt like they were watching a subtle performance of, maybe we kind of fell in love while making this. For Jacob, it also reinforced everything he's been building. The intense, literary, brooding man who experiences love as something heavy and transformative. Very Heathcliff-coded. Very dark romantic energy. Very aligned with the intellectual, slightly enigmatic persona he's cultivated. So, whether it was fully intentional or just two actors leaning into the mood of the film, the result was the same. The promo tour didn't just promote Wuthering Heights, it strengthened the mythology around Jacob Elordi as this emotionally complex, gothic leading man. Not your typical internet boyfriend. And here's something that's actually kind of ironic. Jacob's career resurgence, the shift into darker, more serious territory, is deeply tied to Emerald Fennell. She directed Saltburn and later Wuthering Heights, both projects that pushed him away from the teen heartthrob space and into something more niche and serious. In many ways, she helped reposition him, but Emerald herself is a fascinating figure. She's often praised for her visual boldness and aesthetic confidence, but she's also been criticized for leaning heavily into form, sometimes at the expense of substance. Especially with Saltburn, a lot of critics and viewers described it as visually stunning, provocative, beautifully shot, but emotionally hollow. Aesthetic over depth. Some people even called it beautiful but empty. And that's interesting, because you could argue that this is a kind of performative directing, when the film feels very intentional, very self-aware, very symbolic, but almost too aware of its own cleverness. When the director feels slightly pretentious, not because they lack talent, but because the aesthetic becomes the main event. And if you look at early reactions to Wuthering Heights, some of the same conversations are popping up again about heightened drama, stylization, mood over emotional grounding. So there's a certain irony there. Jacob performs depth. Emerald directs depth, sometimes more aesthetic than substance. They both operate in this space where performance and seriousness blur together, which makes their collaboration feel oddly perfect. So, overall, Jacob understood the assignment. He kept the height, the jawline, the intimidating presence, but added bell hooks, matcha, feminism sound bites, and a Bottega tote. Same hardware, new software. And it worked, because in 2026, muscles alone don't impress people, but combine them with a niche, intellectual aura, and suddenly everyone can't stop talking about you. Depth is sexy now. Taste is power. So perhaps the smartest thing Jacob did for his career wasn't rejecting the alpha archetype, but upgrading it.